Hello everyone, welcome to this investor suburb deep dive for Kewarra Beach in Cairns. I'm super excited to do this. This has actually come via request from someone within the private Facebook group FNQ Property Buyers. So I'm super excited to do this. I really hope that this level of analysis can give this particular person some insight, about the suburbs, so they can then go out and make an informed purchase decision. And if you sit outside this Facebook group and you are potentially interested in buying in Cairns or the area, feel free to join at any time. FNQ Property Buyers, private Facebook group online. But yeah, guys, super excited to do this. I don't usually do these, and I'm going to probably start doing a lot more of these going forward. So if you do have a particular suburb you're interested in buying in Far North Queensland, more than happy to do a similar thing. All right, guys, let's dive in. Hey, super excited. So I've got to give myself a little plug here, guys. So this is proudly brought to you by Tropical Life Buyers Agency. My name is Troy Simbasini. I am the owner of the business, and we are a buyers agency, right? And we work exclusively for property buyers. We have an on-the-ground business model where we service tropical North Queensland, right? And we're generally helping, struggling home buyers, investors, interstate buyers, and those that are geographically challenged. So yeah, if you feel as though you might need help navigating this particular marketplace, feel free to reach out. Happy to have a chat. You see our number there. Click on our socials or visit our website. All right, guys, thank you. So part of this, I suppose, suburb deep dive is to give you insight and analysis on the suburb, right? So what I usually do is, as part of my process, is look at two different data points, both qualitative and quantitative. So I've got a list of different, I suppose, data points that we want to deep dive into that will really then start to paint a picture and tell us a bit of a story about the suburb and what's going on. But I think overall, what we really want to establish here, if it's worthwhile parking the hard-earned dollar here, so we want to establish if it's an investment grade suburb. So we're going to look at the location and where it sort of sits in Cairns on the macro. We're going to look at what are some of the lifestyle drivers in the area. We're going to look at what type of land supply, what type of dwellings tend to be the more favorable within the area. We're going to look at the demographic, who actually lives in this suburb, because that actually will play a crucial role in how the suburb is likely to perform in the future. We're going to look at some historical data around its track record and past performance, so you can see that it might be a potential safe bet to park your money there. It's not some volatile suburb that you're going to be on a regional roller coaster where prices going up and down, as well as median rents. We're going to look at the supply and demand factors right now, what's been happening over the last 3 months for those that are looking to invest, in the near future. That's sort of going to be really important to really grasp if there's a great entry point into this marketplace right now. So establish if this is the right place where to buy, and if it's the right place when to buy. So yeah, guys, and then we're going to summarize in the end with some summary and go through some high-level trends and key takeaways. Let's dive in. So if we started off and looking at where Kewarra Beach sits in terms of location within Cairns, and as we all know, when you're buying property, it's location, location, location. So yeah, Beach, it's actually one of the coastal communities or coastal suburbs located in the Cairns Northern Beaches, right? And it sits approximately 20 minutes from the CBD with roughly just over 2,000 households. But if we looked at this map here of Cairns, so Cairns generally sort of hugs the east coast here, and then it sort of snakes all the way down to Gordon Vale. So Kewarra Beach sits here at one of the most northern parts of Cairns, right? So you've got Clifton Beach and Palm Cove just north of it, and then obviously you then hit the Great Barrier Reef Drive to sort of move through to Oak Beach and Port Douglas. So in terms of location, yeah, it sits on the northern front of Cairns and roughly 20 minutes from the CBD. And if we have a look over here, high level of the suburb, the map here, you can see that it neighbours Clifton Beach and it neighbours Trinity Beach. It's right on the ocean here. There's actually a beach that basically runs from Taylor's Point all the way up to Buchan's Point in Palm Cove, so you can virtually walk along that beach all the way. And the suburb as a whole, like, it's basically got two parts. You're sort of here on the right side of the Captain Cook Highway, which breaks up the suburb, and on the left side you sort of got towards the back here before it runs into national park and mountain ranges. So from a suburb point of view and from a land point of view, yeah, it's all looking pretty good, but virtually on the macro, it sits on the Cairns Northern Beaches, and then it neighbours two suburbs up here on the northern front. So one of the key pillars, I think, when you're looking at selecting asset for investment purposes, we have to remember that we are people, right? And people want to live life. So generally we find that assets that are nested amongst areas where there's some really good, strong lifestyle drivers tend to, generally more outperform. So if we were to look at what are some of the key lifestyle factors or drivers in Kewarra Beach that make it desirable for those that want to live or rent in the area, I'll probably go through a couple here on this list, but first and foremost, it's on the beach, right? It's very close to the beach, the suburb. If you're living anywhere within the suburb, generally you're only, at the most part, 5 to 6 minutes away from the beach itself. And obviously if you live closer to the waterfront, it's all within walking distance. And the beach itself, you can virtually walk all the way from Kewarra Beach to Palm Cove, if you wanted to, when the tide is low. So the beach has a lot of desirability. You can swim there, guys, for those that are outside of the state and are worried about stingers and crocodiles. There's actually a stinger net at Kewarra Beach, and I was over there 2 weekends ago, and the water was lovely, and the ocean was packed full of people swimming in that particular net. You've also got along the foreshore a footpath, and then you've also got the Kewarra Beach Resort that has a nice big sort of outdoor area where they put on drinks and entertainment on the beach most weekends, which is a really nice place to hang out and have a cold brew. Obviously some really good schools in the area, childcare, restaurants, cafes, within driving distance. You could also shoot down to Trinity Beach along the foreshore to tap into some of the high-end restaurants and bars and cafes along there, or just snake further north another 10 minutes to Palm Cove and also get access to that same amenity. So from a lifestyle point of view, yeah, guys, it's certainly got a lot going for it, and it's certainly one that has many drivers, and we have to remember that when we're looking to invest in residential real estate. So now we want to sort of break down what the demographic makeup is of Kewarra Beach. Obviously, this is a really important factor when you're looking to purchase an investment. You don't necessarily want to be in areas where there are low socio-economic demographics, right? Because we generally know what those areas are like and how they've historically performed. We generally want to be in areas where the demographic is a lot better than those pockets of town. But as we can see here, for Kewarra Beach, over 50% of its residents actually have above average incomes, and this actually demonstrates just as a whole that it's not a low socio-economic area. And as we can sort of see here, the household income quartiles broken down in the last financial year 2021, we can sort of see, that the best part of 50% of the population there sit, in the medium to highest tax bracket. So from a demographic point of view, that's really, really good. And Kewarra Beach, that demographic makeup from an income point of view is looking really, really good. So we can also see here from an age point of view, if we looked at the demographic and its age. So we firstly know that they have above average incomes, and that's great, 50% of the suburb. But from an age point of view, we can sort of see here that more than 20% of the Kewarra Beach population are at household formation age, and from a demographic point of view, that actually gives really good stability to the suburb. You don't really want to have a suburb where there's way too many young people. I'm talking about, from 18 to 25 generally, and you don't want to have a suburb where there's too many people on the older side, right, in the retirees, because then that creates a little bit of instability with the marketplace there, because we know that retirees then downsize, and then we know that young people tend to move away as well. So the suburb really has no volatility as a whole. So when we see that there is a high percentage of people at that household formation age, parents and home builders that is a really good sign from a demographic point of view that the suburb has good stability. And just I suppose to continue on on that stability point, what gives a marketplace or a suburb a lot of stability is the owner occupier percentage, right, versus investors or renters, right? When you have a high owner occupier percentage, we know that that also gives suburb really, really good stability. We can sort of see here, it's in really good balance actually. 70% of people that live in the suburb are homeowners and 30% are investors or renters. And we can sort of see here that the average age broken down and what that population makeup looks like. But yeah, overall, guys, that gives the suburb good stability. If you have a suburb that has a high portion of investors or renters, and we generally know that investors are making purchases based on financial decisions, and if there generally is a change in sentiment or the market changes or there is an economic downturn in the area, investors are generally the first ones to panic and sell down assets. And when you have a whole bunch of investors that panic, particularly if there's an economic shock in the area, and they start to sell their properties, and generally they just want to flip properties by then, just get rid of it, so they end up discounting a lot of the investor stock that sits within the marketplace, and then that actually then drives down the median price when you have a whole bunch of people selling way under for what it's actually worth, so they discount the property, and that drives down that median rent. And then also when you have a whole bunch of new supply come onto the rental market, right, that also then starts to drive down those yields, those vacancy rates. So it drives up those vacancy rates and drives down those median rents, which isn't ideal. So yeah, overall, the suburb looks to be in good balance from owner versus investor standpoint. So before you invest in a suburb, it's actually probably good to know what the housing stock looks like, right? And the variety of housing stock that sits within the suburb, because then you can best determine where to park your money or what type of asset your money can buy, right? And it's good to understand this before you go and start buying there willy-nilly. So the average lot size in Kewarra Beach is 600 square meters, and the preferred dwelling type is a 4-bedroom house generally. And we can probably see here broken down the suburb housing stock into probably the 3 different stocks that I see in the marketplace, and what we are usually buying as well. So we can sort of see on the left there that you have your sort of general suburban home, and I'll probably say this is your typical family home. 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2-car garage, roughly 40% green space, al fresco area, and most likely a pool sitting in the backyard as well. And most of these homes tend to be on the eastern flank of the Kewarra Beach suburb as a whole. And from a price point of view, most of them tend to fall into that sort of $500,000 to $800,000 price bracket. So you've got that as one level of stock. You've also got your acreage living in Kewarra Beach. It's actually probably one of the only suburbs in Cairns on the Northern Beaches where you can get acreage living. I'm talking about 1 to 4 acres here, and this particular house sits on James Cook Drive and is actually on the marketplace right now for $4.1 million. So we can probably see that these properties that have acreage tend to sort of sit in the higher bracket, and but it's good to know that that's potentially there as a potential investment choice, these big acreage blocks. And then you got sort of down the front, you've got sort of waterfront property as well, that sort of sits right on the water or very close to it, and they tend to sit on average from $1 million up to $6 million. This here is selling off the plan right now for roughly $6 million. So that would give you a good idea on the types of dwelling in the area, and then you can probably start to pinpoint and align what might be the best fit for you based on your budget. So we've had a look at the different types of dwellings, right, and what your money could potentially buy there from a dwelling standpoint. But now I really want to turn your attention to the land, right, and the land makeup of Kewarra Beach as a whole, because from a land supply point of view, we really want to really capture what that looks like also, because that's future supply, right, will really determine how potential capital growth is likely to look in the future, right? Because we generally know that new supply tends to hold back capital growth or tends to be its enemy, right? So from a land point of view, as I said, you got your standard 600 square meter residential lots, but if we sort of looked at the suburb here, we can sort of see the acreage blocks towards the rear here, towards the mountain flank, and obviously you got all your general residential through the middle there. You can see the light pink color actually shows that the land itself is zoned low density residential, which is great. We can sort of see here that there are parts of red. That's Kewarra Beach Resort on the top left there. That's zoned high density. But other than that, we can sort of see that the remaining land within the suburb as a whole generally sits within that low density residential and rural res, right? And it almost looks like it's completely built out. So we can sort of see there are parts of green space there that would be protected under environmental bylaws, probably state and local. And we can also see that there is some parkland right towards the right hand or the southern flank there, and also some public amenity with football fields and the like. But there's also this big vacant block of land right sort of in the heart of Kewarra Beach there, and that's actually the Paradise Palms Resort and Golf Club right now, and that's actually being totally redeveloped by Darren Haplin, one of Canada's most established developers, and he's actually putting the best part of 150 residential lots into that as a precinct. He's going to build a tourism park there, a retail hub, so that in itself will become a whole big destination area, right? But from a land point of view, you're virtually capped other than that little bit of new supply that's going to come in over the next 1 to 3 years. But other than that, we can sort of see, that from a land point of view, Kewarra Beach is virtually completely built out, because you can't go any further east because you'll hit water, and you can't go any further west because you run into mountain ranges and national park. So it's good to now look at what the track record of Kewarra Beach looks like, right? Past performance doesn't really dictate or determine future performance, but it would give us a really good insight as to sort of what's going on there historically, right? But we can't really guarantee past performance to really determine what future performance looks like. But we know that areas with good track records are probably far more likely to have the same trajectory in the future, right? But if we looked at the median house price for Kewarra Beach over the last decade, we can see there from the best part of 2013 up to about 2020, it had a pretty stagnant growth rate, right? It's been relatively flat, and then obviously during that sort of COVID-19 period, it exploded, right? We've probably seen a lot of net migration into Cairns. We've sort of seen a frenzy from southern buyers come to the marketplace and buy in these really desirable, northern beaches location, driving up that median rent there. So we could probably see, from a historical standpoint, Kewarra Beach has sort of been, relatively lazy for the last sort of, 8 years, and then sort of exploded over the last 2 years, right? And it probably also comes back to, if you did invest, early in 2020, you probably would be making a lot of money. You probably would have made a lot of money, right? If you bought the typical, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home on 600 square meters of land for $470,000, you're probably sitting on the best part of $200,000 with equity right now. But look, no one has a crystal ball. No one can anticipate, these massive upswings, right? So kudos to whoever bought then, but what we really want to look at is the long-term trajectory, right? Property is generally a long-term asset that you hold, right? And it's very liquid. So we want to make sure that, if this market still has a lot of steam into it and some really good fundamentals, so we can continue to see this median house price to grow, right? But overall, if we look back, we can see that it's been pretty lazy, but then exploded over the last 2 years. So we can sort of see here now, if we sort of looked at the historical data for the suburbs median rent, right? So we kind of know that, from a median house price point of view, the suburbs have been fairly lazy, over the last 8 years, and then exploded in the last two, generally around that COVID-19 period, and we saw that virtually play out in different markets across the country, and most markets now are entering into a retraction, but we'll sort of figure out next how Cairns is going, and Kewarra Beach in particular. But we can see here from a median rent point of view, like it's increased year on year over the last 10 years in Kewarra Beach, and it's got a really nice, healthy incline there. That graph looks really good. For me, it's the type of graph that I like to see, right? Particularly when I'm looking at data, a nice steady incline. And what that essentially means is that, if you own an investment property, right, and, your lease is coming up for renewal, you can bump an extra $10 or $20 onto that next lease agreement, right? And your rents can continue to go up. And I really like this graph. As I said, it's got a really nice healthy look to it. It's not one of those really volatile graphs, or it doesn't show me that rents have generally gone backwards. So it gives investors really great confidence to know that if they do park their money here, that every time that lease is up for renewal, you can whack an extra $10 or $20 onto that new agreement and continue to outpace inflation or outperform the market even as a whole. But yeah, median rent's looking good. The track record here, I'm very happy.